Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast. And I'm really excited about today's show. We have Evan Kostopoulos, and he's actually a former athlete, played soccer from Australia. I've checked out his social media, it looks fairly impressive. And now he's a current business owner at York Hamilton Corporate Partners. So we're going to talk about, I love athletes, military. I've had fighter pilots because these make the best entrepreneurs. So we're going to take the journey of an ex-pro footballer who's seen the highs and lows of pro sport and the startups in the world of business. And now he's a successful business owner. Hear all about his journey. So Evan, welcome.
Hey, Christopher. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know, thanks to the audience, because I know it's 5 a.m. in Australia there. So, kudos to you for waking up and showing up. So kind of tell the audience about your journey, your, pro footballer, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it is early. You're killing my gym time, but it's all good. I'll go a bit later today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks again. It's I guess my journey's started from sport. I've always been involved in sport the first, I'd say, 25 years of my life. Coming through the ranks, I started off having some stints in Europe. Obviously, I'm of European background, Greek, as you can see. My last name's got like 38 letters in it. So I started there, and then in my own city in Adelaide, Australia, which is located in South Australia. I played professionally there for a couple years, and then I moved to Hong Kong and Southeast Asia towards the back end of my career. And it wasn't smooth. Unfortunately, I saw the highs and lows of sport. Dealt with some dodgy agents. Saw some corruption in sport, which is something you might hear about from time to time, but until you're actually living it, it's a strange ordeal. So I guess that's my history in sport. I can go a lot deeper into the weeds of that if we need to, but I guess it just led me to come back home and enter the business world, and that was a journey in itself. Knowing nothing but sport for the first part of your life and having in your mind that that's all you will ever do. And then maybe after sport, you'll still be involved in sport. But it took a different turn, and it's taught me, I guess, where I am today. So, yeah, currently managing York Hamilton, which is a offshoring staffing company for Australian businesses, and it's going pretty well.
Nice. So my question is, were you were you always planning to exit sport, or was it kind of like you realize this and because most pro athletes, they kind of want a longevity career, but some, like, I recently heard this interview with Joe Montana, and he's like, he was a smart one. He was like, at some point his career is going to end. He's taking hits from daily, and he's got to find a way to financially survive. So what was it for you?
Of course. Well, I guess I didn't plan to end so early. It was a little bit out of my control. And I think it's really important, and you've just mentioned Joe Montana as a good example of your network and the people around you and the advice you're receiving, which I'm sure half of it is his own mindset, but also the people around him giving him good advice. For me, I guess I didn't have that advice. If anything, it wasn't even no advice; it was bad advice. And sometimes agents or managers can lead you in a way that it's maybe not for your best interests, and you're thinking for today, not for tomorrow. So I guess it was out of my control, and probably if I look now at, obviously I've been retired for a number of years now, but if I look, I could technically still be playing. I'm not that old. I'm only 33 still, so I technically would be at the back end of my career, but I didn't plan to end so early. It is what it is. I guess that's this experience I can pass on to other young players, to my children if they head into sport. But I think it's great that some big athletes now are planning after sport, because one day, as I mentioned, you're on top of the world, and then the next day you're retired and you're back to square one. You don't have any experience in business. You don't know anything, maybe financially, because you've had a team to look after it. You don't know anything legally because you've had a team to look after it. So you're coming into an unknown world where it's completely new to you, and the sooner you can get your hands into it or get sound advice, the better.
Mm. Yeah, it's very similar to what's happening to physicians, because for a long time they were touted as job stability, and these jobs are going to be around. But now hospitals are struggling, and you know, you know, prices are going out off the roof, and so a lot of people are concerned and worried. And yeah, I mean, that's why financial literacy is so important. One thing is talking about there's correlations between athlete mindset and entrepreneur. So you just talk about turning setbacks into setups. um tell us about resiliency.
Yeah, so that's something I try and hold closely, because as I mentioned earlier, you're one day you're on top of the world and everyone loves you and you're doing really well and you're considered, in the top percentage of your field, and then suddenly you go into another life where it's like, okay, I'm a nobody now. I need to start. I need to start from the very beginning. I don't know anything, and when I mean anything, I don't know anything. I mean, as I was playing sport in Asia, I was studying, remotely, a business management course, which I didn't learn too much on, because I don't think it was it was an informative course. Nothing can teach you as well as the real thing. So you're going into a world where it's just, I don't know what to do here, and you have to start from scratch. I guess the first way I learnt, especially post my career, was I was involved in a number of different startups before York Hamilton came alive, and they were in a few different industries, entering a world as well with, you're not making an income on some of these startups. So there's so many things you're just trying to work out: marketing, sales, accounting, legal side of things. The list goes on, and you just need to literally start from scratch and learn one thing at a time. I mean, manufacturing was something I didn't even have any idea what the process was, and we had to learn that. So for me, the resilience is backed in sport, because along with the good times, there's times where you're not playing and you've just got to get through and you got to push through, or you're trialing and you're one out of 100 people that might get picked. So you're taught the fundamentals of just keep going, and something will eventually break open. And now if I look back 5-6 years ago, maybe, or maybe 10 years ago, sorry, and that I'd be a business owner overlooking a few different departments, I'd laugh at you. But I guess I put my head down and got the right advice as well, which is very important, because you don't know everything and you might not learn everything, and who's better to teach you than those who have done it before you? So sound advice is really important as well. But at the end of the day, resilience is a key word that you have to actually put in the time, because I think people have an image, especially athletes, that it's going to be wonderful, and then everyone will still, just throw business at them because they remember them as an athlete. But the reality is that the day you retire, everyone forgets,
Oh, yeah,
and you start from scratch. So
yeah,
that's, yeah, resilience is the most important thing, along with getting the right advice, in my opinion.
yeah. I love that resiliency. We talked about getting, and one thing that is talking about is this identity. And they say that success is not guaranteed. Basically, you have to pay your rent every day. for success. You have to, and it's not like you don't own, nobody's entitled to success, and you have to. So talk about this, because a lot of doctors, they practice or whatever. Let's say they get fired or economy or something, and they built up this persona that they're a surgeon or they're a doctor, and then they have to reinvent themselves. Talk about that from an athlete standpoint, because it's very similar.
Yeah, great question. It is a real struggle, because you're literally becoming a new person, because your lifestyle's different, your job's different, your identity. It's like exactly the who am I? Who I don't know who I am anymore. I've got to literally make a new person who knows nothing. It's like when you start playing sport or you start school, where you just everything is unknown to you, and it is extremely challenging, and it's something um, which I hold close to my chest, because actually, when I retired, I was in a sports agency that we started for a few years, simply to guide young athletes to have that support network, which I don't think really exists that strong. So, and that's the reason, especially if you look at the rates of depression, anxiety, stress, post an athlete's career, or most careers, professional careers, it's extremely high.
Yeah.
And the identity is one of the main things that I think, because it's no one's telling you, okay, and whatever the advice may be, I don't know, but an example would be like, okay, we need to really just close that book. It was an amazing experience. It was who you are, but you can't be a pro athlete until you're 85 years old. You can't be an actor until you're 85. Well, you can, but the chances are you won't be. There might be a day in your, profession, whatever it may be, that it's going to come to an end. Sport is, I guess, the top of that funnel, because it's going to end a lot earlier, because of the physical limitations you'll have. So I don't think there's enough advice around, real guidance to say, okay, let's close that chapter. Let's move on. Let's reinvent who we really are. What is your true purpose? What is your true goals and aspirations? Who do you want to be? Because until you sit back and look at it, you're still acting as if, well, I'm an athlete who's now an entrepreneur, business owner, because everyone's got this persona of, I can be like these big athletes who have brands and businesses and hotels. But the reality is that's not who they are either. They've got a team. They're at a level where they're not even actually doing anything. Or when you're starting from the bottom with no money or minimal money, no team around you, you're really struggling to find out who you are and the direction you're going in. And for me, it was the biggest challenge as well, because for a few years, I didn't even know. I think I worked out and I got over the fact that, okay, I'm not an athlete anymore. I need to do X, Y, Z. I still didn't know what direction of XYZ I was going in. I didn't know if I was going to get involved in a startup. I didn't know if I was going to be a player agent. I didn't know if I was going to get into business in another aspect. I didn't know if I was just going to go work retail. I had no idea what my future was. And I
Mm.
think that is the scariest thing, because for so long, and I still see that in some people who retired a similar time as I did, it's like, well, someone just needs to shake you out of it and say, well, what
Mm.
are you going to do for the rest of your life? What are you passionate about? What are you really going to make a difference in? You can't hold on to, I'm an athlete, I'm an ex-athlete, I'm a
Mhm.
former pro. The truth is that that's not important anymore. It's a good part. It's good, there's good tools to bring across into business. There's
Mm.
good memories, you know, but that's where it ends for me, I think. And you need to find who you are. If I thought I'd be involved in what I'm involved in now, I'd laugh. But it's just where the world took me, and I don't regret it at all.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. That's kind of that's what it was. A lot of gems of wisdom. And again, a lot of doctors, they get caught up in this ego and this identity. They built it up, and it's time to move on, reinvent yourself, find a new purpose. Um, the other question is, what led you to start York Hamilton, and kind of talk about. I love how you're advocating for literacy and getting the younger generation prepared and kind of understand the reality, so that and what led you to start it, and what do you wish you could do differently?
Yeah, so to lead on with the identity crisis that I had for definitely a while, for so long I was doing multiple things. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I guess at one point I had to, identify that, well, I can't do 10 different things. As much as everyone wants to be an entrepreneur off the start line, you can't be. I guess
Yeah.
I guess to be honest, it is in my nature. I do run a few things now and I can handle it, but I don't do it myself. I have some teams to help me. But at the time, I identified that, okay, I'm helping young athletes. I'm helping my wife with her shop, which I'll explain in a second. I'm involved in a few startups. I was doing e-commerce. I was doing so many things because I didn't know what I was going to do and who I was.
Mm.
So something ticked one day, and I decided, okay, I have to just pick something and focus on that, get that really working, and then maybe I can go back to multiple things, because I think that's exciting too. Having another project if you can handle it. And York Hamilton, I did have some previous experiences with offshoring when I was living in Hong Kong. I was exposed to it through the business owner of the team at the time. Sorry, the chairman of the team at the time. And I sort of left it in the back of my mind. Then coming back to Australia, I was also introduced to it again. And the first place I thought we'd introduced it to was my wife's business, which I thought needed some assistance. It
Mhm.
turned out to go really well. And I started just literally referring people to offshoring. And when I say offshoring, so it's remote staff in the Philippines or South Africa or Vietnam,
Mm.
Singapore, who work for companies in Australia or the US or Canada or Hong Kong, for example. So
Mm.
it's a global thing, which I'm sure you would have heard of. Um, and yeah, it was going really well. And I decided one day I wanted to do it a little bit better. I thought it was really good, but it still had a poor stigma within the industry.
Mm.
And something in my head lit up. I said, okay, if we do this right, we'll stand out, because it does have a bad stigma. Communication needs to improve, security levels need to improve, the quality of the staff need to improve. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. We've grown, um, you know, really, really well in the last couple of years. And referrals alone, we haven't even started marketing. As I said to you, we're just starting to go public now, getting on podcasts, starting a bit of marketing,
Mhm.
getting live. Up until this stage, we've just literally been working the system. And yeah, I guess for me, I was passionate about helping business owners who are stressed and taking everything on themselves. So and obviously, there's a shortage of staff around the world, especially in Australia, when it comes to specialty tasks. So there was a bit of a passion connection there as well. And I thought, okay, if we can optimize and automate processes, have staff offshore doing a lot more of the work as well, we could really have some freedom for business owners. So I guess that was my passion. Being in a European family, you see how hard they worked and how stressed our fathers and mothers and uncles are. But the times have changed. You don't have to, do 16-hour days anymore. You can really optimize, be efficient. Um, and the demographic of business has changed as well. You need to really change the way you're thinking about business. So for me, I feel I had a knack for that. I'm very systems and operations driven, so that's my strong point. There's still many areas that I work on or I get advice on that I'm not great at, but I think so far we're doing a good job.
Yeah, yeah, very fascinating. Um, so then, one thing is talking about is you did the transition, and you discovered your passion, and you're good at what you do. What's been the most challenging, and what's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain? From athlete standpoint.
The most challenging thing is the unknown. Like, every day, you sit, for example, with your bookkeeper or accountant, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know what that means. or you sit with your recruitment team and you say, okay, well, we've got to work out a way to get more candidates, good qualified candidates coming in. How are we going to do that? We need to collect payments from Australian staff. We then need to get those payments and transfer them to the offshore staff. How are we going to do that? We have a legal, not barrier, but we need to add these legal documentation into our contracts to make sure. How do we do that? Little things like, seeking a lawyer and understanding a little payment discrepancy on a spreadsheet when you don't know what that is is overwhelming, because there's so much running in your head. You're not just doing that one thing. You are starting a business where you may be strong in one out of 10 different areas. And every day you're learning something new, you're reading a new book. You're like, okay, now I need to know more about numbers. I need to read a few business accounting books or business finance books. Okay, recruitment. I need to find someone who can tell me more about recruitment. We're in the recruitment industry technically. Trying to find the best people. How do I create a system, which we created from scratch, a system that pinpoints the best talent for that job based on the input and the requirements? At the start, I didn't even know where to look. I was Googling recruitment software. So for me, the scariest thing is the unknown, and the hardest thing is to just jump in and just start.
Yeah.
For me, that is the hardest thing. And to answer the back end of your question, for me, the most important thing, and there's probably a few different things, but humility is really important
Mm,
to drop your ego and
mhm.
understand that I don't know anything. I need to ask advice. I need to be vulnerable, to be open. It's a hard question sometimes just to sit with the accountant and say, well, I don't know what that means. Can you explain it to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, our whole life we're taught in sport, for example, and business or elite business, that you are the best and you need your ego because that's where your confidence comes from and self-esteem, blah, blah, blah. For
Yeah.
me, when you're starting fresh, that shouldn't exist. You're coming with full humility that you know nothing. And that for me is the most important thing, but also the hardest thing to do because you know, everyone's walking around today with an ego. Everyone wants to show who they are, have their Instagram account blaring and TikTok, and the reality is, you know, you're starting from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. One of because I train with Olympic champions. I never made the Olympic, but it was great being around them because they even after one gold medal, they at the next day they were preparing for the next Olympics, and they said there's no guarantee they have to come in still hungry, still like the underdog, and when you're at the pinnacle, everybody's gunning for you, so it's even harder. So and then yeah, just really fascinating. Like I said, I love talking to athletes because they have a really different mindset, and a lot of successful entrepreneurs are former athletes or military. um, how can one last question is this idea of automation and artificial intelligence. That's like the new buzzword, artificial intelligence. You have truths and myths. I'm curious to get that before we call it a day.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of buzzwords being thrown out in the world at the moment with AI. Everyone loves saying AI and writing about AI and talking about AI, which is great. And there's definitely areas of AI that are amazing, and you can automate your business with AI, in a number of different ways. But for me, when I see automation is to have a really clear process that sometimes doesn't need to be complex. If you go to France, for example, or Italy, and you go to a cafe, they have an amazing process. They know exactly what to do every step of the way,
Mm.
and everything is written with paper and pen. But they know what is the next step. Okay, the next step is that. Okay, This person's going to go and take the order. This other person is going to pour the glasses of water, who might be, a new guy. Then they're going to get that piece of paper, give it to the person who runs the cafe. That person is going to instruct the coffee maker to make what he needs to make. The paper comes back to the till. The till turns into a receipt, an invoice. Invoice goes back to the table. Owner comes out. Owner, asks if everything is good. You happy? And if you look at this process they have, it's on paper and pen. It's a very simple where I think now we look at, okay, everything needs to be like on ChatGPT and AI generated, and we need a plug-in for this tool to talk to that tool. And I think for me, that is, when I say myth, it's not a myth. It is true. It's there, but I think it's a myth that that's going to change your life and your business. And AI, if you spend 2 days learning AI, you're going to transform your whole business and you'll never have to work again. For me, that's a misconception. It's not reality. AI cannot change your whole business. And for me, companies and clients who we speak to every day, because we do understand this stuff somewhat, it's more so our direction is bring it back to the basics. You can have an amazing business still running on old school tools, but the process of how you do things is more important than the tool that you do it on. Where everyone talking AI is talking more so about the tool that you're doing it on. Of course, you can draft a really quick email with ChatGPT and create a report, and you can actually build a business on ChatGPT with the guidelines of AI. But it's just pulling the data now, which has been oversaturated. So, I wouldn't take advice of getting on ChatGPT and saying how to build a business and literally following it word for word. For me, it's humbling yourself, bring yourself back to basics, get sound advice, learn yourself off, different methods of, whether it's expertise in business, podcasts or videos, or someone an experienced business owner, and then follow a process. As simple as
Yeah.
that. I think we overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I love that. I love your practical. I love how you're very level-headed and you don't get caught up in the hype or the narrative. You kind of evaluate it, just like a athlete. And so, how can people contact you, follow you, check out your company, etc.?
Yeah, so I can be visited at yorkhamilton.com, with our business needs. Personally, I can be contacted on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. I don't use them that much anymore. I try and keep a low personal profile.
Yeah.
It's just who I am. I'm a bit more introverted in that aspect. I don't want to post everything in my life or boast about being an entrepreneur or anything. So, but I can still be contacted. Love to have a chat. Love to speak to other business owners, both personally and professionally, whether it's through myself or through York Hamilton as a business, and maybe we can provide some needs, or just learn about your business. It's always good to speak to as many different people in different directions to see, what can you take from them? What can they take from you? And can you help each other? That's the nature of life. It's not always just what can I get. It's what also can I give.
Yeah. I love that. I love, like I said, I love your level-headed, your humbleness, practicality, and so well said. For all the audience out there, let's thank Evan for coming onto the show, dropping really nuggets of wisdom from a pro athlete, and all of his resources will be in links in show notes. And thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's a pleasure. Hope everything goes well, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.